about non-duality. He used to be a non-duality teacher, and I think in 2012 or something like that, he changed his mind and started to speaking up against it, so to speak. He's made a video called "Why I Quit Non-Duality and Fell in Love with Our Vulnerable Humanity." So I'm gonna listen to it and give my take on it.
It was the spiritual teacher Thich Nhat Hanh who said, "The real miracle is not to walk on water. The real miracle is to walk on the earth." And I love that because to me it speaks to the heart of what true spirituality really is. You know, when we get into all these spiritual teachings and we become spiritual seekers like I was for many years, I was like the world's most obsessed spiritual seeker.
It's funny. I don't know. I've read some of his books, or at least listened to them, and I noticed that he tend to say, or maybe it's in his talks too on YouTube, that he was a spiritual seeker for many years, and of course that can be defined in many ways. What does that mean? It really mean several or many years? Maybe that is more than 3, but to my mind, that is like a lot of years. But as I understand it, at least, he had his spiritual awakening before he was 26. He's born in 1980, and he studied astrophysics at Cambridge, it says, and he was overwhelmed by feelings of despair and loneliness, and which eventually led to physical illness and a personal breakdown. And he returned to his parents and lived there and studied there. For a year on spirituality, searching for relief from his depression. This ended in 2006 with the dissolution of the sense of separation, which he understood to be a spiritual awakening. I think he has something that talks about it, looking at a chair and seeing that he in the chair is one or something. I don't remember. But that makes him 26 years old. And Life Without a Center, his first book, came out in 2006 too. So to me, it seems like he only kind of been a seeker for like a few years, is what I would say. If he started to be a seeker around the time he studied astrophysics at Cambridge, I imagine it didn't start when he was like 5. And so he was probably for like 3 or 4 years, maybe, at the most, something like that. I mean, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. But I just noticed that he says that they've said it a lot of times that he's been a seeker for many years, and at the same time, I don't think it was what most people would call many years. Many people have been spiritual seekers for 20, 30 years. Even 10 years isn't that long a time when it comes to spirituality. Yeah, anyway.
It's so easy to get mesmerized by all these teachings about pure, unadulterated perfection and the end of suffering and transcending the world and getting into altered states that it's so easy to forget that we are also human beings. We have these animal bodies. We also walk on the earth. We are also wonderfully fallible, imperfect, vulnerable, sensitive human beings, as much as we are pure and perfect and divine and pure consciousness.
What I found interesting, at least, is that this is how I remember him from back in the day. He's even though he's pretty young, he's about my age, and but he's been around for a long time. As I said, he wrote his first book in 2006, and there's a video with him here on his YouTube channel 15 years ago. So he was early on YouTube. He was one of the first, shall we say, spiritual teachers on YouTube. So I listened to him back then, and I remember him as being very, focused on the humanity side. So to me, this is how I remember him. But I imagine that he must mean that some in that was a more a focus of just this beingness, or just this being consciousness, and how that can be a spiritual bypass in some ways, and I imagine he will get to it.
Some pure awareness, and all of that. So I think there is a shadow side to spirituality, and in particular, I mean, my experience has been with non-dual teachings. I mean, for many years, I was considered to be a non-duality teacher, whatever that means, and I kind of had to quit a few years ago to resign from being a non-duality teacher, only because I found that this word non-duality was confusing so many people, and it was becoming, if I speak really honestly, I feel like it was becoming a kind of cult. Like, I'm non-dual and you're not, or like non-duality is the true truth, is the absolute truth, and all other viewpoints are less than. I felt like
I find this to be interesting. I imagine he's spot on with it. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and he's been looking at these trends and cultural shifts and the spiritual communities that has gathered over the years, and for now many years, almost like 20 or yeah, for at least 20 years now. I myself, though, haven't really gotten into that non-duality swamp, so to speak. I've seen videos about it, and I've been, interested in spirituality for as long as he has. I think we're, as I said, about the same age, and I started out in my very early 20s reading books and yeah, to me, yeah, I just find it interesting because maybe I got out too quickly from that type of spirituality, or yeah, I wonder.
it was, for many people, it was becoming a dogma. So there is a beautiful, beautiful truth to the non-dual teachings.
I can say though that I've seen a lot of, to me, nonsense satsangs with non-dual teachers, in which people are sitting there in the audience and just asking nonsensical questions and getting nonsensical answers. At least to me, it's just so. If you don't mind the word, or it's not a it's not a swear word or anything. It's just a heady, shall we say? It's just mind, just talking about thoughts. If consciousness is everything, then why am I not conscious in, well, deep dreamers sleep, and was going to say that's not such that uh, that's not that idiotic to say, because there are, yeah, but many of these questions are just surrounding, what if this, then that. But after, instead of just like in the Zen tradition, which I'm from, we don't speak about those things at all, basically. It's just like, do your practice. Every question you have, do your practice. Like Ramana Maharshi said, he's a non-duality teacher. I don't know. He's sort of advice, yeah, sort of an Advaita teacher. Anyway, he was just return to, or just ask yourself the question: Who am I? Who is asking that question? Basically, who is asking the question? Find that, and then your question as well as the questioner will be resolved. That's pretty simple, and that's just the way. Of course, there are thousands of books written in Zen, in about Zen Buddhism and different traditions too. But I just the questions that I see from many of these satsangs or retreats, I really question the worth of having them. I don't know if they're really worth very much. Wouldn't it be better to just go deeper into your, do your practice and inquiry, instead of spending time asking questions that are just super heady? I know that's a value judgment, and maybe a bit judgmental, but yeah, that's my thought on that.
On one level, we are And this is something you don't have to believe. This is something that you can look for. You can look for yourself. And this is what meditation is great for, looking for yourself. On one level, when we really look, what we find is that deep down we are this awareness. Again, call it what you want. The words don't really matter. They're all fingers pointing to the moon. You are this vast ocean of pure awareness, unchanging, undying. You are timeless. You are ageless. You are pure spirit, pure divinity. On the deepest level, I am what you are. You have your life story and I have my life story, but underneath both, we are the same awareness, the same presence, the same consciousness, the same ocean. We appear as separate waves, but we are the same ocean. So there is a beautiful, of course, I'm massively oversimplifying it, but that's the basic truth of non-duality. Is that who you really are on the very deepest level is this pure. It's unspeakable, of course. This pure awareness. So the danger of non-duality, and this is what I found over the years, is there were people going around who were so identified with being pure awareness. It's like that had become their new identity. Their ego had latched onto this idea that they are pure awareness. And I'm only exposing this because
This you uses the term exposing. I find that to be funny. Um, that is something that I also seen because I haven't paid attention to these teachings for some years. I know I said I've been interested in for 20 years, but these last years I haven't looked at many teachers online. Anyway, I've been doing that for a while at least, and I've seen many teachers to pop up with the name, something non-duality in the very name. So it's not just they have the name or Jeff Foster. Jeff Foster would be, Jeff Foster non-duality or Eric non-duality or Susan non-duality or whatever. And some of them seem to be, at least to my mind or to, what I see, seem to be doing okay. But some of them seem to be a bit, I would almost say, stuck in a bit of a state, like it's almost like, I think what is hinting to, or maybe explicit already said if I didn't listen enough, they are sort of stuck in a state, was that what I said? And they are trying to be consciousness, sort of. They are trying to be awareness. I'm this being. I'm just being right now. I'm being beingness, sort of. I'm over exaggerating, of course, but I just get the sense sometimes that it's not really what Jesus said. If I if I let myself speak about religion, he has this saying that I really like, that it's only when we become like little children that we can enter the kingdom of God. That saying can, of course, be interpreted in thousands of different ways, but one way of interpreting it is saying that it's not until we become, spontaneous, free, and definitely not like you can almost see it in the facial features of some, that they are sort of, it could just be like stress or, being uncomfortable in front of a camera or whatever. Most of us are. But I sometimes wonder if it looks like being sort of quote stuck in a state, in a way. Could be a spiritual state, could even be a sort of non-dual state where you experience everything as one. There's no inside and outside, what have you. But it's still something there that isn't free, in a way. There's something there that isn't recognizing the humanity or vulnerability of the human being, as just that Jeff Foster is speaking about, at least. I think he is to some degree. That has been my experience, at least.
this is what I did for many years as well. I was one of these people. I believed with all my strength and all my heart and all my might that I am pure awareness. I'm not a mind, I'm not a body, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my story. I am pure awareness. So there's a beautiful truth to that statement, but the danger is, and I've just seen this, saw this happen in myself. I see this happen in non-dual students. I've seen this happen in non-dual teachers. It just becomes a new resting place. It becomes a new dogma. It becomes a new identity. I am pure awareness. And you kind of, the danger is you fall into this kind of untouchable place.
This is also something that Zen Buddhism speak about, and they even have it in not necessarily Zen Buddhism, but Buddhism in general. And I imagine all the mystical traditions to speak to this point to some degree. Maybe not all, but I imagine some of them do. They say explicitly, this will be paraphrasing, but in the Heart Sutra, for example, which is by many seen as the most profound sutra in the whole of Buddhism, that or the Diamond Sutra, or whatever, they say, it could be also Faith in Mind, I don't remember, but they speak about going, in the Heart Sutra, they definitely speak about going beyond. So we understand that we disidentify, so to speak, from our senses, our perceptions, our touching, tasting, smelling, all of those things. And we also disassociate or disidentify with the mind, the thinking mind, the narrative self, the self-referential thoughts. We realize it's not me. We disidentify for the feelings. And we realize oneness. But what they say, in some sutras, is that you shouldn't even hold on to oneness. Even that, as Foster is pointing to here, even that can become a sort of prison. You become a prison in the idea of being consciousness. You can have the experience of being consciousness, but that's a new identity, so which you can be stuck in, so to speak. And what they say is that the true truth is beyond that. They say, Gatte Gatte Paragatte Parasangatte Bodhisvaha. That is the end of the Heart Sutra, which means beyond, 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 even more beyond awakening. Oh, how wonderful, sort of. But it just points to the thing that we can't hold on to anything. It's neither this nor that. It's neither that we are human beings, nor consciousness, nor oneness, nor non-duality, nor anything. It's just a negation of everything. That's sometimes called the apophatic theology. I don't know. Or Nagarjuna's neti, just not this, not this, not this, not that. We just negate everything. And what Foster's saying here, or as I'm hearing him say at least, is that some do tend to get stuck in, or they hold on to this idea of non-duality, or whatever that is. Non-duality, in essence, means not two, not this, not that, in a way. That is, not making distinctions, not being dualistic. So we say, maybe someone says, there's just oneness instead. But oneness is in opposition, or you can compare it to being two. And here's, of course, where words break down, and even experience, in a way, because what Jeff is saying is that even the experience of oneness can be a sort of prison, which it is, which these traditions warn students about. And Jeff is speaking about this dogma then surrounding non-duality, and being sort of like speaking really slowly and having these intellectual debates around what is consciousness, what is non-duality, and yeah, I don't know. That is just what I see in the yeah, some of the YouTube videos that I'm looking at.
You become this untouchable, pure awareness. And of course, that's not what you really are. Deep down, you still have all these kind of human feelings and doubts and fears, and you still have trauma, but you are denying all of that, suppressing all of that, because your new identity is that you are pure. I am pure awareness. So it starts off as a beautiful living truth, but the danger is that it just becomes a dogma. It becomes another resting place. It becomes a kind of I'm special thing. And you know, I being part of the non-dual teacher club for many years, I went around the world and I met a lot of these non-dual teachers, spiritual teachers, awakening teachers, at conferences and hanging out with them and staying at their houses. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I will.
Go ahead.
I was mostly very disappointed over the years meeting these spiritual teachers, and let me explain that. I think I had this idea that they were all perfect human beings. So it was actually very beautiful to one by one to meet them and be disappointed because, and this was behind the scenes, spending time with them when they weren't on stage, when they weren't.
I think this is a really important point is bringing up here. I think for a person that isn't interested in spirituality at all, this would be obvious. No one would even think this. No one would think that the spiritual teachers that we look at would be perfect human beings, because they would look at them and say, what's special about him or her or whatever their name is. Because there aren't. This is I've had this interest too to find the smartest people I've just had as who are the most awake, who are the smartest person, the most knowledgeable persons, and how are they sort of holding it together? How are they in communication? Can I, when I look at them, most of them I'm only able to watch. This is not now. This is years ago, actually many years ago, and what I noticed is that just what is said, and I noticed that even just watching a lot of video with them, the teachers that I liked even. And I could see that they got triggered, for example. I could see that they sometimes got annoyed or triggered, and that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine, of course. But many people seem to have an idea about people or these teachers being almost perfect, and when they realize they're not, they say, "Yeah, they weren't a real, they weren't a real teacher. They were just some phony," and they move on to the next one, maybe. And in the end, there's no one there. There is no perfect teacher there. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has a organism, a biological organism has they can't do math any better after they had their awakening or whatnot. They can't do jumping jacks faster. They can't do, they don't know anything more about the Middle East. And they are the same person as everyone else. They have the same troubles. They have the same trauma. They have the same, you name it. Some of these trauma, some of the, well-being some may be resolved through going through a spiritual awakening, for sure. Just as other, strong experiences like psychedelic experiences or traumatic experiences that are like more on the positive side or going through psychotherapy can also help people become, quote, better people. But going through a spiritual awakening and just realizing oneness, yeah, that's just one thing. You don't become a great person. You don't get, much better morals. There are some some, I mean, it isn't much, we don't have much research done on this. Unfortunately, it would be, or maybe it's a good thing, I don't know. But I like truth better than just believing in things, because I can understand how, many traditions has, painted it like becoming this godlike creature almost. They just don't exist. I've been studying spiritual teachers for also for a long time, and everyone I've seen in person, they're just a normal person. They have the same. I mean, they may be more grounded in some ways than others. They may have more, awareness and sometimes even love for sure. But they do have, like Foster says here, they do have trauma, they do have unresolved issues, they do have relationship issues for sure, and they have a lot of other issues. The shadow, they have shadow elements because they are human beings. It is a biological organism there that has a brain and a nervous system that has gone through a life, and it wasn't just, spiritual awakening doesn't resolve all those things. It can resolve some to some degree, but yeah, in general, no. And no one is totally resolved. Not even close, I would say. Not even close. Yeah.
Being watched, all of them, bar none. And I met some of the most famous spiritual teachers on the planet, most successful, most famous. They all, every single one of them, they all had doubts, they all have fears, they all got triggered sometimes. They all had trauma that they were struggling with. They all well, I mean, there was a whole range that I saw, but at the very worst, I saw them take out their stuff on their partners, on their students. But look, this is not to judge anyone. I'm not saying this to judge. What
No, I mean, and I really agree. It's not a judgment. It's totally, it's the reality of how it is. And yeah, I'm really glad I put this video on. I haven't watched it before. So yeah, that this is my experience too. I haven't met anywhere near because he's been like a famous teacher, so he had access to them, the biggest names. And yeah, it's just confirming for me too, because this is what I've been saying to my friends and on my Swedish channel for years, that this is how it is. There's even a book written called Stripping the Gurus by Geoffrey Falk. It's by no, definitely not a perfect book by any means, but it just highlights some of these masters like Shogyon Trungpa, for example, or Adidas Samraj, or many know that Adidas Samurai isn't a good good guy nowadays, but uh, yeah, it just points to the fact that a lot of people that are, and that's the thing, they are still great teachers in many ways. Shogyen Trungpa, he wrote the book Spiritual Materialism, and many, people, wow, how to his abilities, as being, this so awake, free being in many ways. But he was also an a-hole, he acted with this called crazy wisdom, which Adyashanti is not necessarily in relation to Shogyen Trungpa, but he said that it's more often more crazy than it is wise, and I would agree. Yeah.
I'm saying is, we are all so deeply human. As much as we are pure presence, pure awareness, divine, we are also human beings. We are also infallible, fallible, imperfect.
Yeah, just kick someone in the nuts and see what happens. See how much of a consciousness they are.
Human beings, not infallible, fallible, imperfect human beings. So it was actually a blessing that my expectations, my projections, one by one were completely shattered, and I started to realize, oh my goodness, we're all just human beings doing our best, and it was very enlightening actually. And I came to realize very, very, very deeply that, we may believe all these things, all these spiritual concepts and ideas, but what does it all mean if we're not really, really, truly living it in our daily lives? So that's what really interests me now, is really living these teachings in our daily lives. And not trying to be perfect and not trying to be the most enlightened, but really embracing our deep humanity, embracing our imperfections, embracing our doubts. These aren't shameful things, things we need to hide. And with all these spiritual teachers I met, it's like, some of them.
And I think also one of the the problems is that the teachers have accountability, of course. They should, or I think they can do whatever they want, but I think it would be a good thing, or I mean, I prefer truth at least. I prefer people being truthful. I mentioned Adyashanti before, and I remember him. Uh, he seemed like he had it all together. He was one of those teachers that I felt like, yeah, he seemed to have like a good upbringing, not a lot of trauma, and he just seemed happy-go-lucky, sort of, and genuine, not in a like pretend sort of way. But now, a couple of years ago, he had to stop teaching because he had so much trauma coming up, and some of his students were annoyed at him not being honest about it when it came up, because they spoke to him. A lot of people have trauma coming up during retreats and other stuff, and they spoke to him about their own trauma when he was dealing with his trauma, which was debilitating for him to the degree that he had to quit teaching even. Um, but some found it to be, I mean, he has a right to his private life. He doesn't need to speak about his own, trauma. But I think this is part of the problem with many spiritual teachers. Not only that they are not, not only that they are being dishonest in a way, because they are when they're not. I mean, you can be private, and yeah, so it's not dishonest maybe in that way. But I would feel that it's a bit dishonest, because they speak about their own experience most of the time and never mentioning their own how they dealt with trauma or whatnot. Yeah, that would seem a bit dishonest to me at least. Anyway, they seem to have it all together, but it's not just that they're being dishonest. It's also the fact that the communities around them want them to be like that in many ways. At least I think so. And when people see that they are these, again, a-holes, or these people who are, far from perfect, shall we say, they think that they're not a real teacher anymore. So that kind of feeds the negative spiral or loop of, dishonest loop, living in denial loop, that feeds this, these teachers because people want that. They want these perfect teachers because they want to project everything on them. If you ask them, of course, they wouldn't say that, but we seek out people who has something we don't, why else would we look for it? I don't want to go to someone who's, worse off than I am and ask him or her to help me, People want to go to someone, that guy looks to have it all together and be enlightened and happy and perfect relationship or whatnot, I want that. I'll go to him. I think that's part of the problem too. And I'm not sure how to resolve it really, because it's this, is it like the prisoner's dilemma? I don't know. When if you go out and you are honest about it, then no one else is. It's like you're lost. People will just pick someone who is more dishonest and seem to have it together. But if everyone goes out, if everybody is start to be honest and more, open about these things, then yeah, it would either be no one to turn to, or people would be more accepting of it too, and maybe not project as much. I'm not sure.
Them, bless them, were really open about their imperfections, about their doubts, about their things they were still struggling with in their lives, the relationship conflicts and dramas that they had, problems with family that they had, and some of them weren't. Some of them, just, no matter what you said, they would just pretend to be perfect. And I never suffer. I never feel pain. I never feel doubt. I never feel anger. That's all ego. That's all illusion. Blah 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 blah. But we defend ourselves in so many ways, don't we? So again, this isn't to judge anyone. I've been just
Just a
like that.
little.
I was one of them. I've talked about this many times. For years, I believed I was the most perfect human being on the planet. I believed
Okay.
I was the most enlightened human being on the planet. I believed that I had no ego, that I was pure awareness. I was
This is also something that some teachers warn warn against, which is don't start teaching too early. If you have like a big awakening experience in the Zen tradition, they say like I think it takes 10 years to get rid of the stench of awakening, and yeah, there are many sayings like that in different traditions that you need to integrate, embody it, and Jeff Foster. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but he went out there at 26, like a year after his big awakening, and I think people really liked it. Anyway, I mean, he obviously spoke to a lot of people. Now he maybe, I don't know if he regrets it, but he has a different viewpoint on being a teacher now and what to say. But yeah, so that may be a problem too, that some people have these awakening experiences, openings. They realize that their consciousness, and then they start speaking about it, and people are drawn to that. Maybe, yeah, maybe that seems like candy in a way. That seems to be like problem free. I remember the comedian Jim Carrey, which is actually, he mentioned Jeff Foster in a video. Jeff uses the term deep rest for depression. That being depressed is actually deep rest, which is a great saying. And I heard Jim Carrey saying that, yeah, I had this, a good friend of mine or something like that. Jeff Foster has this saying. And anyway, Jim Carrey in another video spoke about how he realized what people want from him as a comedian. And what he realized was that they wanted to be free of worry, I think, something like that. And so he went for it. He went to get them to be free of worry. So they go to you go to a stand-up comedian then, which he was, and to laugh, and you forget about yourself. You forget about your troubles, your trauma, your worry, all those things, and you just laugh. So that's one way of getting rid of it. But finding someone who says that they are always happy, they have no problems, they have blah blah, whatever it is, it's a lie. They maybe even think it themselves, but they are the most enlightened people on earth too. It just seems so good. In reality, it's too good to be true, right? But it seems so good, and yeah, so that is what people are drawn to, and that may not be a good thing. So maybe it would be better. I mean, we can't do anything about it really, but it would maybe better that to wait a few years after you had a realization of being consciousness before you start teaching.
was untouchable, and I had truly, 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 truly realized that, and everyone else hadn't. So it was ironic, in the name of non-duality, I was separating myself from everyone else. So it was actually very, very dualistic. So yeah, this is just to remind you that it's it's okay to be imperfect and human and struggle. And spirituality, non-duality, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, it's not about eradicating all of our human vulnerability. It's about giving ourselves deep permission, moment by moment, to be beautifully, wonderfully human and sensitive and vulnerable, to make mistakes, to screw up sometimes, to forget who we are sometimes, to have wounds that hurt, and to learn to turn towards those instead of pretending that we're perfect and pretending that we have no wounds and pretending that we are pure awareness and pretending that the body isn't real. All of these.
I'm also thinking that sometimes maybe for some people that could be a good thing. Even in some psychological studies, they've seen that, we have this thing that we can either, go like Jeff says here, we can go towards our problems, towards our traumas, towards what have you. If you take trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, that is, what they do in many ways. You go towards your problems, you expose yourself to them, and doing that over and over, you sort of habituate to it, and you can live with it. You don't get this, the nervous system isn't that as impacted by it anyways. Your thoughts aren't as impacted by it anymore. So that's one way of attacking it, or, confronting it in a way. But for some people, it seems that at least in some stages of their lives, it could be a good thing to sort of get on medication and don't think about it, basically. Just go on with your life, go to work, do whatever it is, because confronting it with therapy, or, thinking about it, or whatever it is, could be dysfunctional. It's what is functional. It can be different for different things for different people, but is one of those things could be, being able to take care of your children and go to work and make a living. For some people who go into therapy, exposure therapy, they can't do that anymore, so they break down, and maybe if they go through it, they will come out on the other side and be able to take care of the children and go to work again. But I mean, that's not functional enough. If you're, the sole provider, for example, you need to be functional for your children. So in some instances, it can be a good thing to kind of postpone that and sort of just keep yourself floating in a way. But at other times, when it feels right, or when, the moment just reveals itself, going deep into that maybe what's best for you. So my thought is that maybe these ideas, or maybe this trying to be, pretending to be enlightened consciousness, can, in some instances at least, for some people, at some times, be functional, at least, if we use that term. It may be not ultimately be, true, whatever that means, true awakening, true spirituality, in terms of, what the traditions speak about, like a fully human, Jesus again, fully human, fully divine, being fully embodied. Definitely not that, but you may be still having a better life and be functional in life. So just to contextualize it a bit, to say that it may have its place, and people are obviously drawn to it, even though, I was going to say Avengers, but I think many people think that is a good movie and I really like it. But my point was just that maybe Christopher Nolan is much deeper and better in many ways, but I mean, Avengers is a great movie too to watch, So we may not need to pick and choose every time, or we maybe rather we are able to pick and choose some for some instances and others for others. And for me, of course, or not of course, but for me, I want the reality, that I just wanted to go through it all. I wanted to, whatever it was, to give up my life for this for this journey in a way, or that was what happened at least. But yeah, I don't. That may not be the path for everyone.
They're all just concepts. They're all just concepts. And what I've learned is that the true freedom and the true joy and the true peace has come from letting go of even the non-dual concepts. I am pure awareness, all of that stuff, and just surrendering to the present moment as it is, letting myself be imperfect. There's been such relief and joy in just allowing myself to be imperfect. And ironically and paradoxically, that's where you find the true non-duality, which is not at war with duality. It's not opposed to the appearance of duality. It doesn't say, oh, duality is just an illusion. Human stuff is just an illusion. It's less than. There's no superiority in it. It's the ocean not at war with its waves, not rejecting its waves, not saying, oh, all my waves are an illusion, or trying to get rid of all of its waves. None of that. It's the ocean deeply in love with all of its waves, embracing all of its waves, at one with all of its waves. Ultimately, the ocean is not separate from it, is its waves. So non-duality ultimately is not separate from the appearance of duality. It's all one movement. So then that's why I had to quit. That's why I had to quit as a non-dual teacher. It didn't make.
I think also Adyashanti and other teachers said the same thing, basically, that they don't want to be associated with non-duality. To me, again, it has never made any sense to me, really. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why. I'm not sure why it is, but I like what he's saying, that non-duality, yeah, I don't even know what, to me, it's just what the words I like to use is awakening, awakening or truth, or these words that speak to a sort of awakening, wake up in the moment, in this moment, to the truth of reality. And non-duality is like, maybe to me, a sense of being that it is no separation between inside and outside, for example, which is, that is my experience. But I I don't know what it is with non-duality. It's something that it's both seems to be very attracted to people and both to be repelling for others. And for me, it's sort of almost nonsensical. Yeah. I mean, some words are great for being, in a way, nonsensical, or being, making sense of nonsense, as the title of a book. Zen koans, who am I? What is this? What is the sound of one hand clapping? They are, in a way, nonsensical, but they point to something deep. And in some ways, I guess non-duality also does that, but it just doesn't have that effect on me. Asking myself the question, what is mu? What is this? Who am I? Does have that effect. And some other words too. Non-duality just doesn't. Not sure why it could be. I'm just not getting it.
Make any sense. So these days I'm just so deeply in love, more than ever, with our wonderful, fleshy, earthy, muddy, sensual, imperfect, vulnerable humanity. With our beautiful doubts, with the mistakes that we make, with, trying, bless us all, we try so hard. We try so hard to do it right. We try so hard to be good, to be all these things. And for me, I've found spirituality not separate from the world. Non-duality not separate from duality, but deeply infusing. My divinity deeply infuses the earth. It's there in a dog poo on the pavement. It's there in the face of my child, in the face of my partner. It's there in a cloud, in a blade of grass. It's there in a tree. It's there in the sound of the cars beeping their horns outside. It's here in the body. in the flesh, in the joy and the sorrow and the boredom and the clarity and the doubt, in all of it, it's all sacred. It's all sacred. And so I just wanted to make this video about just pointing out.
I think it's really hard to capture really what the problem is with nonduality, but I think he made some good points. There's still a few minutes left of the video. What I was thinking was that I think many of the non-duality teachers would agree with this, that everything is sacred, that everything, So it's hard to really capture what the problem is, because I think they would agree to this. Some of the things that he's saying, the way he views spirituality, basically. Would be interesting, maybe not. I was thinking maybe it would be interesting with a debate with someone who call themselves non-duality teacher, because no one says, yeah, I'm totally neglecting my body. I'm totally, identifying with being consciousness and forgot about the body. Most of them say more things in, or saying, this is just happening, sort of. This is the body is happening, the speaking is happening, and to me, what I can get is, and this is more like a subjective thing. It's hard to like really quantify or make an argument about. But what I see, my intuitive sense, is that some people are, like I said before, so I'm repeating myself, stuck in a sort of state, basically. Stuck in a sort of non-dual state. Jeffrey Martin, one of the people who has done a little bit of research on awakening or enlightenment, or what he calls persistent non-symbolic experience, PNSE, or oneness experience. He speaks about these different locations, basically, and that you can end up on or go through on your spiritual journey, so to speak, or awakening journey. And some of them are non-dual and some of them aren't. So yeah, it would be interesting to see it, maybe hear what his take on these spiritual teachers would be. Because it seems to me, again, that some of them are a bit in a state. They are not really fully alive. They aren't really speaking in a way that makes me think that, yeah, they're really aware of their humanity in the way that Jeff Foster is speaking. But it's, to me, a bit hard to capture, so I'm gonna delve deeper into this with I think maybe do more videos about it.
The shadow side of spirituality, or the shadow side of non-duality, is that the danger is we become less than human. We forget our humanity. We become very, very serious, and non-duality becomes a new dogma, and we start pretending to be perfect. And that becomes the goal, is being perfect and never suffering. And then we just end up becoming cold and robotic, and it's exhausting, and we do damage to each other, because when we forget our own deep humanity, we forget the deep humanity of the one who's in front of us. So the more we can fall in love with our own deep humanity and open to our wounds, and admit to our doubts and our fears, then we can more deeply meet the one in front of us. And how very paradoxical. We're one, but we're not the same, as U2 sang in their song One. We're one, but we're not the same. We are all the ocean, but at the same time, we are these unique waves, these unique expressions of the ocean. And I think sometimes the danger with non-duality is that we become so mesmerized by our sameness, we're all pure awareness, that we end up missing or dishonoring, or at worst discounting, or at worse shaming our wave-like nature, shaming our differences, shaming our individuality.
And I think just one of the problems with that type of non-duality is the fact that they don't seem to have a great time. they're just sitting in those satsangs asking these unintelligible questions about consciousness and talking like really slowly and no, this is really judgmental. And yeah, I'm sorry. And I mean, it just doesn't look like any fun. I mean, everything doesn't have to be fun, but yeah, sometimes it looks almost like, there are all these documentaries on Netflix and other shows about these cults and sex, and you see how they sit there, and everyone is like, "What is?" And everybody, and people start having the mannerisms. I really like Rupert Spira, so I don't I don't want to bash on him, but he's a sort of Advaita, Neo-Advaita teacher, I think, a non-duality teacher, some would say. He speaks extremely slowly. He really savors the moment, and um, but I like him. He's not one of those people who I see looks to be maybe too stuck in a state or anything like that. It just seems to be his personality, more or less. But I just see that other people seem to be copying his mannerism and speaking just as slowly. And yeah, for me, that is not how small children are. That is not how I envision, the Sahaja Samadhi in the Hindu tradition, which means the spontaneous state or the natural state where we are free, just like other people who aren't, captives of their own minds, like most animals are. They are free in a way that we aren't free. They're also stuck in a way that we aren't stuck because they don't have the mind to get out of the mind, so to speak, but they are free in there because they don't have a mind, a thinking mind. They don't think about themselves. They don't sit around asking themselves, questions about consciousness and is it this, but if I feel that, then what? But I feel something now. And it's like, yeah, come on, man, take a break, and maybe meditation isn't even for you at the moment. For me, I noticed that I got stuck even in meditation. So I can, just like Jeff Foster spoke about him being, the worst case of what he's now trying to expose. Uh, I really got stuck in meditation. So even if we're not, yeah, and I also listen to like tons and tons of spiritual teachers over many years, audiobooks and YouTube clips, and I just maul with. I really enjoyed it too, but yeah, it was way too much than I think was what was necessary for sure. But also meditation. I did like a ton of meditation. I went to retreats a couple of times a year, these Zen 7 days retreats. I really liked them too, and I was, quote, good at it. But I just noticed after 10 years of doing that, basically, or yeah, something like that, eight years, that yeah, it's not really happening. I was thinking I was going to be enlightened, and and it's not really happening. I don't know what's wrong. And for me, it was really changing gears. It was my intuition that led me to it. It wasn't like a thought or idea that I had, but and this is controversial for some people, but I felt a deep intuition to go to Peru and do psychedelic, the psychedelic brew called ayahuasca there. So I did for several weeks, and during that time, that was where I had because I was doing meditation, sitting a couple of hours each day, and then we were doing like 4 ceremonies each week too. So I was really going at it there and sitting in my little hut. I still remember it, not like it was yesterday, but I still remember it, that I've been hiding inside of my meditation. I've been really good at being present, being aware, being consciousness, sort of being this, and it's been a hideout for me. And in a way, maybe a bit of a trauma response that some people have trauma response of shutting down and just being present sort of way. And so for some people, meditation can in some way enhance that, and it's really hard to know. It's hard to know beforehand what it is. You just have to, go with what works for you and read up on what you can read up on. So for me, anyway, a lot of trauma came up there, and working with that in the years afterwards and doing a lot of like relational practices and things like that. That was what, together with the meditation, of course, from all those years, which was what led me to where I am now. And yeah, I don't remember how I got into that. Let's get back to the video.
Our humanity. So this video is really a call to forget all the concepts about non-duality and just let yourself fall in love with your deep humanity. And there I believe you'll find the true non-duality, the true spirituality. And we don't even need...
Yeah, and can we just not call it? Maybe that's what is about to say. Can we just not call it non-duality? Please, Jeff, let us call it, just reality, or the love of your own true nature, as we say, or as they say in Zen Buddhism, self, your own true self, or this world. It's plenty enough. We don't even need the word non-duality, I think.
Need to use those words.
Yeah.
The real miracle is not to walk on water.
True.
The image of perfection. The real miracle is to walk on the earth. Thank you for listening. If this video has been helpful anyway, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'll be making more shortish videos like this in the future. Lots of love to you.
Yeah, that was shortish. And mine is definitely not short even. I can't even call it shortish. But yeah, thank you, Jeff. Jeff Foster. It was really interesting to see how similar in the type of approach or thinking. I didn't know that beforehand. To my own thinking, at least. So that was Jeff with his take on non-duality. And yeah, I find it to be really interesting. I want to explore it more and understand this. I got some free time to understand this. What is the, what is the possible? I mean, it's not really a problem, I think, but just as it can be functional for some people, it can also be dysfunctional for some people. And what I was alluding to, or even explaining about my own progress or my own journey, so to speak, I realized that I was stuck in not really non-duality, but more stuck in meditation, stuck in being, very present. I was great at being, extremely present all the time, and great at being, in doing meditation for hours and hours and hours. And I think that's a good thing still. And it's not like it wasn't worth anything. It's just that we are, as human beings, more complex sometimes than the meditation practice takes into account. The meditation practice does something for us, something for basically almost all of us. It's most people it's really safe for, even though some people maybe should do some other practices at first. I mean, going to retreats can be really psychologically taxing for you. Same with psychedelics, same with even psychotherapy. It's not great for everyone. But for me anyway, meditation has been great to be doing that for a lot of time. It just, I needed other things too. I needed to go to Peru, do the ayahuasca, meet my, like Jeff spoke about, my darkest fears, and and then work with go into psychotherapy, doing relational practices, things like that for several years afterwards. And that really got me into my own body, into my own feelings, into my everything that had been up until then sort of dissociated from, in a way, from very early childhood, which I weren't really aware of. I just noticed that I wasn't really emotional, but I didn't exactly know why or what to do about it. So, and as I said, meditation and spiritual practices can even sort of mesh into those trauma responses in a way. You still get benefit for sure from doing meditation, even though you may have a trauma response that is in sort of in cahoots with the practice. So that's why it can be good to supplement with other types of practices. Not necessarily going to Peru. I don't want to, you know, condone that because it's illegal in most countries. Not going to Peru though, but taking it in your own country, in the Western world at least. But just following in your heart, basically. Is this, doing it for me? I mean, if you've only done it for a week, it's a bit short to evaluate. But if you've been doing something for years and years and years and you still feel stuck, yeah, maybe it's time to switch it up a notch. Maybe it's time to try something else, or at least add something else. I'm going to read, I got 2 comments on my last video here from André Hallqvist, who said, I'm atheist, but, yeah, again, I'm going to move it over to my other screen here. I'm atheist. It was in response to my video about everything spirituality. So he says that I'm atheist, but believe in neither spirituality, religion, nor rationality, science, skepticism. Okay, so neither spirituality nor rationality, science, skepticism. A funny way of saying it is to say I don't believe in truth. Yeah, I like that saying. It's to be skeptical in a way of everything. And I'm reminded of Genpo Roshi, Dennis Genpo Mersal. He's a Zen teacher, or was, or maybe is again. He's one of those who seemed to have it all together. He was even doing psychotherapy and all kinds of things, and he was the teacher of the largest Zen lineage outside of Japan, Water Cloud Sangha, or whatever the name was. He was really adored by many people and looked up to, and he slept around in his sangha. It seemed, he did, and he had a wife and children, and so he was both dishonest with his wife and children, and he also did something that is highly unethical, being a Zen teacher, where you're supposed to not sleep around in your sangha. You can, of course, say that it may have been consensual in some ways, but when you have that power dynamic with the teacher and the student, where someone who you look up to almost like God in a way, it's not a good look by any means. So anyway, he did this. One of the psychotherapists that he brought into his sangha actually is called Voice Dialogue, and he did that. It's from Hal and Sidra Stone. It's almost similar to internal family systems. Anyway, he came up with his own version of voice dialogue, which is called Big Mind. And in Big Mind, he adds, the big mind voices, like the master, don't know mind, whatever, more spiritual voices. And I haven't really explained voice dialogue, but that is voice dialogue is talking to these different parts of you, or different voices, like the skeptic, or the vulnerable child, or the angry child, or the protector, or what have you. The reason I started thinking about this is it was because of what Andrea had written here about I don't believe in truth. I believe in neither this nor that in a way. And it is a sort of to being so. Gamperose spoke about the skeptic, being in the skeptic, and the skeptic is skeptic towards all the other voices. That is his or her only role or function is to be skeptical of everything. But if the voice is truly skeptical again towards everything, it is skeptical to even itself. So when we say we don't believe in anything, in a way, I agree. I think like that myself in many ways, but it is also, in a way, I think, not believing. you have to question even that in a way. That's what I'm saying. Being skeptical of the skepticism even. So here it would be, I don't believe in truth, but there's still a belief there. The belief is to not believe in truth. That is also a belief. And Ramana would say maybe, who is having the belief? Who is saying, I don't have this belief? That would be the spiritual inquiry. And this may be more like, I'm not sure where you, Andreas, coming from. It's just, how you view it. And I had, tried to formulate my own thinking about, atheism versus believing in something, basically. And I like the idea of neither this nor that, just this instead of anything. But it's hard because as soon as we say what we believe or don't believe, there's some form of belief there. I guess that's, we're starting to run into the sanghas I previously critiqued. Just Exclusive says, you as a soul spirit are doing a spectacular job humaning. Thank you. What's the difference between soul spirit, if there is one? Question mark. Would you like to expand on that in your way? Do you think human spoken written language is a restriction in discussing such stuff? It's called spirituality, never heard of soulality. Thank you. Thank you too. Yeah. I'm not too much into the difference between soul and spirit, or not like not in like a judgmental way or anything. I just haven't thought about it very much. Spirit doesn't really say anything for me. I think soul is something, that I think, to me at least, is similar to kind of intuition and feeling into your deeper purpose in a way. I think that could be your soul or higher self or intuition, if you will. I kind of put those things together in my own experience, at least. When it comes to spirit, it doesn't really say anything for me. Is that like God or the Holy Spirit? And maybe that is what is breathing through us. That would be a distinction then. Would you like to expand on that in your way? Yeah, I guess that's all the expanding I can do, I'm afraid. And I do think that human spoken written language is a restriction in discussing such stuff. Yeah, it's the only way we have to discuss it, of course. So, but it's dualistic in its very nature, of course, because that is the nature of language. That is the nature of speech. That is the nature of the world in many ways. It is dualistic in many ways, as it also is non-dualistic at the same time. But I really dislike that word, not world. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you, and I see you in the next one.